Good morning, everyone. I'm Emily Akhtarzandi, Managing Director of AtlanticLIVE, and welcome to the Next Drugs, an Atlantic policy update on biosimilars. This is our third and final event in our series on biosimilars. The Food and Drug Administration defines a biosimilar as a drug that is, quote, highly similar to an FDA-approved biological product and has no clinically meaningful differences in terms of safety and effectiveness from the original product. The worldwide market for these drugs is big and getting bigger, estimated to hit somewhere between $25 to $35 billion by 2020. Switching to these drugs from the biological therapies they are modeled off of has the potential to save our health system tens of billions of dollars. But many issues remain, including the FDA approval of these copies, though not exact replicas, of biologic pharmaceuticals. This conversation isn't a static one. A patent case in front of the Supreme Court and laws making their way through Congress have the potential to change the market and industry. So we clearly have a lot to talk about today. I'd like to thank the Biosimilars Council for making today's event possible. The Council is a division of the Association for Accessible Medicines. And with that, I'm delighted to welcome the association's President and Chief Executive Officer, Chip Davis, Jr., who is here to say a few words. Chip, welcome to the stage.
Emily, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right, now, come on, it's biosimilars. Let's go. On behalf of the Biosimilars Council, I want to thank all of you for being with us here this morning, those of you physically in the room and those of you who are participating online through the live stream. It's great to see, as Emily said, this is the third in the series, so it's very nice to look out and see some familiar faces in the room, as well as many new ones. From the last two policy briefings that we had in the Next Drug series. The Atlantic team actually was joking with us as we were preparing for this the other day that these events have cultivated a die-hard biosimilars following. Many of you, if you recall, we had a pretty mild winter here in Washington, D.C., except for one day. And that one day was the same day as the first event in this series. So a lot of people were good enough to brave through that snowstorm to attend the first briefing. But all kind of kidding and weather issues aside, we take everyone's continued interest in biosimilars and these briefings very seriously, and we think they reflect an important indication of the need to keep engaging and educating stakeholders across the healthcare ecosystem on important issues relative to ensuring a robust pathway for these medicines. In fact, today's panels will touch on some particularly timely and salient issues for all biosimilar stakeholders, from restricted access drug programs that result in fewer affordable options for patients, efforts within Congress, such as Congressman Welch's leadership in being the lead sponsor of the Fast Generics Act, and you'll hear from him momentarily, to address those types of abuses, to the impending Supreme Court decision that Emily referenced in Amgen v. Sandoz, and how that will impact the emerging biosimilars marketplace. In fact, interestingly, since our last briefing in March, one more biosimilar has been approved by the FDA, and so we have now a total of 5 approvals in the U.S. market, although only 2 are on the market due to ongoing litigation. So the good news is we're making progress, but we are still far behind our colleagues in Europe. These ongoing regulatory and policy considerations on biosimilars development, including what stakeholders anticipate biosimilars can expect when it comes to patents and exclusivity issues, and the future of the biosimilars debate and how it may play out from the Supreme Court to the impact of that decision in the marketplace, are all issues that the Biosimilars Council and its members, who are manufacturers and stakeholder organizations working to develop these products, are following and engaging in very closely. And we will be fortunate enough to hear from many experts who will be joining us for this session this morning. As was said, this is the third event in the Atlantic's Politics and Policy Briefing Series that's being supported by the Biosimilars Council. But it is our hope, as the Biosimilars Council and overall as the Association for Accessible Medicines, that this is simply the end of the beginning of a much-needed dialogue with all of you here today. And we look forward to continuing these discussions as the biosimilars market continues to grow and develop. In fact, I would be remiss not to mention the fact that we have an upcoming conference this fall entitled Leading on Biosimilars that will be hosted by the Biosimilars Council and will convene industry leaders, FDA officials, patient and consumer advocates, clinicians, and other marketplace experts. And that will take place here in Washington on September 12th and 13th. You can find out more about that conference by visiting the Council website at www.biosimilars.council.org. And we hope to see all of you at the conference in September. Finally, for those of you who are looking for even more information and relevant data on biosimilars, please make sure as you exit, if you didn't get it on your way in, that you grab a hold of the packet of information of Council materials that was just outside the door. In addition to information about the Biosimilars Council, you'll find several new educational resources that we are sharing for the first time today, including some relevant new information contained in a study on REMS. And it also includes a biosimilars fact sheet and infographics on breaking down the barriers that have constituted some of the challenges with making sure that the biosimilars that have been approved are getting to the market. In addition, there's a myth versus facts infographic that addressed some common misperceptions about biosimilars. We hope that you use these materials. We hope that you find them helpful as you continue to learn more about the promise of the emerging biosimilars marketplace that will enable patients to have access to safe, affordable, and life-saving medicines that they richly deserve. So once again, on behalf of the Biosimilars Council, thank you to the Atlantic, and thank you to all of you for being here today for this important discussion in this forum. And I'll turn it back over to Emily. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chip. Before we get going, a few quick notes. Please silence your cell phones, but don't put them away. We'd love you to join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag ATLPoliticsPolicy. That's ATLPoliticsPolicy, one word. And we want everyone in the room to be part of the conversation too, so we'll have time for questions after the panels. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our first guest, someone who continues to play a meaningful role in crafting biosimilar and health policy on Capitol Hill. Congressman Peter Welch is a Democrat from Vermont, and he's here with my colleague, Steve Clemons. Steve is the Atlantic's Washington editor-at-large. Steve, the floor is yours.